The merchant of death has been freed. Victor Bout, an international arms dealer, war profiteer, and as the former DEA chief said,
is one of the most dangerous men on the face of the earth.
The man who inspired the movie that starred Nicolas Cage, The Lord of War. He ran a network of air cargo companies which specialized in transporting weapons to places at war. And because he controlled the largest private fleet of Antonov cargo planes with heavy airlift capacity, he was able to transport tanks and other heavy equipment anywhere he could make a profit. He supplied arms to many rebel groups, which fueled conflicts all across the globe, resulting in millions of deaths. The places which he operated in included Afghanistan, Angola, Congo, Liberia, Pakistan, the Philippines, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Sudan. He evaded capture for years, and it took a lot to bring it down. It took
Operation Relentless, a sting that spanned 3 continents,
to finally capture him. He was charged with
4 terror-related charges, including conspiracy to kill Americans.
After he was arrested in Bangkok while attempting to sell arms to US investigators posing as Colombian FARC rebels. The weapons were supposedly intended to be used to kill Americans in Colombia. And now, Victor Bout, the merchant of death, the Lord of War, the man who supplied
AK-47s, not by the thousands, but by the tens of thousands,
to groups all across the world, is now free. Why was he freed? So America could bring home a lesbian WNBA player who smuggled weed into Russia. Okay, there's a little more to it than that. First, we'll talk about who she is. Then we'll go into detail about why she was put into a Russian penal colony for 9 years. Why don't we let White House Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre explain who she is?
On a personal note, Brittany is more than an athlete, more than an Olympian. She is an important role model and inspiration to millions of Americans, particularly the LGBTQI plus Americans and women of color. She should never have been detained by Russia. And I am deeply proud of the work that the president has done.
I love how she went from saying, "We are proud of what the president has done," to "I am proud of what the president has done." I don't understand why she called Griner a role model though. How could you call her a role model when she refused to be on court while the national anthem played? A lot of right-wing people such as Trump has said that she openly hates the country. But the reason she refused to be on court when the national anthem was played was because she was protesting for justice of Breonna Taylor, an innocent black woman who was shot and killed by police officers. There were at least 7 cops who forcefully entered the apartment as part of an investigation into drug dealing operations. She says that she doesn't mean to disrespect the country and has pride for it, so she doesn't seem to hate it. However, it could be argued that her reasons for not being on court while the national anthem is played is poor, and she is spoiled and ungrateful. And another name you could call her is an abuser. Almost 9 months after Griner was engaged to Glory Johnson, another WNBA star, they were both arrested on assault and disorderly conduct charges. They also received a record 7-game suspension as punishment. Surely there's another black lesbian WNBA player who didn't get a record suspension that could be a role model for the LGBTQI plus Americans and women of color. So why did they fight 2 days after they bought a house together? I don't know. I guess they couldn't handle being around each other for that long. They both had injuries, but the reason I'm calling Griner the abuser, even though they were both injured, was because Johnson had a concussion and Johnson said that she pleaded not guilty and Griner had pleaded guilty. The WNBA stated that they both pleaded guilty. And another thing I'll add is that Johnson got pregnant. Griner filed for their marriage to be annulled because she has no biological connection to the child, obviously, and that she was pressured into marriage under duress under Johnson's threatening statements. So let me summarize. Johnson threatened Griner into marrying her and buying a house together, so Griner beat her up in revenge. Then Johnson got revenge by sleeping with a man, even though she's a lesbian, and says she's excited to raise a baby with Griner. Then Griner fails to annul the marriage. Does that sound right? I really have no idea what's going on. They both seem to lie out of their asses. But why did Griner decide to take a trip to Mother Russia? Because she's broke. WNBA players get paid pennies because no one watches them. The NBA loses money so they can keep their sport afloat. So Griner needed to play in Russia instead of resting during the off-season to pay her bills and buy some boxing gloves so her hands don't get hurt the next time she beats her wife. Then she put hashish oil, aka cannabis oil, inside 2 vape cartridges and placed it in her suitcase. Unfortunately, the thought that Russia might not allow weed to enter their country didn't cross her mind. That's because she accidentally packed the cartridges into her suitcase. Then she was detained at a Moscow airport and later convicted for attempting to smuggle narcotics into Russia. Then she was sentenced to spend 9 years in a penal colony. She spent 294 days of her sentence before she was released. According to a report by a Poland-based think tank, the Center for Eastern Studies, known as the OSW, in penal colonies, inmates are housed in barracks and are often put to work. Prisoners are usually transported to them in cramped train carriages, and the facilities are often overcrowded. Human rights violations and torture are common. So these places are obviously pretty horrible, but I don't know what Griner's experience in them was like. The US State Department believes this experience shouldn't have happened at all. They determined that she was wrongfully detained. But was she really? Possessing less than 6 grams of cannabis or 2 grams of hash can lead to a fine or jail time for up to 15 days, and possessing any more than that can result in a serious criminal offense. But Griner had less than a gram and was sentenced to spending 9 years in a penal colony. That doesn't add up. Wait a minute. One of the best WNBA players slapped with unreasonably massive criminal charges in order to pressure a senile man who's had 2 brain surgeries, yes, not 1, 2 brain surgeries, into handing over an arms dealer who's resulted in the deaths of millions. Wow, Biden fell right into Putin's hands. Maybe the deal would have been worth it if there was another American that was wrongfully rotten into a Russian prison, but I guess there wasn't. Oh wait, there was! Paul Whelan, a former Marine who became a security executive. He was arrested in a Moscow hotel in December 2018 and was convicted in June 2020 on espionage charges that the US government says were manufactured. Whelan's brother wrote to the New York Times saying, "There is no greater success than for a wrongful detainee to be freed and for them to go home. The Biden administration made the right decision to bring Miss Griner home and to make the deal that was possible rather than waiting for one that wasn't going to happen. And sure, it's great that Griner is now home, but do you know who else is home? The Merchant of Death. Biden traded a WNBA player for this guy, and he couldn't even add Whelan to the deal. If it's true that the espionage charges were fabricated, then Russia has been manipulating the law and making up charges to obtain political hostages. Even if Biden got Whelan home as well, he would have fallen right into Putin's trap card. Either way, Putin wins, but at least they could have got 2 of the hostages home. And Biden still wants to get Whelan back. So what deal is he going to make next? How many kill assists does someone have to have for Biden to name off limits? For him to say, no, this guy is rotting in prison. All Putin had to do to get the arms dealer back was to over-sentence a dumb WNBA player for bringing weed into Russia. A lot of people are talking smack about Trump, but do you think that in any of your wildest dreams he would have made that deal? I don't think so. People have pointed out that Trump made a deal where he freed 5,000 Taliban prisoners for the release of 1,000 from his side. I don't know if the people from the other side are all Americans or if they were allies as well. That deal might not seem good, but apparently it was the first step to peace in Afghanistan. Obviously, peace in Afghanistan isn't happening anytime soon after Biden ordered the US soldiers to leave all their equipment behind to flee the Taliban. But maybe it was a good opportunity to make back then. I haven't looked into it too much, so let me know if I missed any facts in the comment section, because you know I love facts. And do you know what a fact is? If you don't like and subscribe right now, the Merchant of Death will come for you. So do it now.